Speaking of Happy presents Frankly Speaking. With co-host Eli Rigatuso, founder and queer transmasculine two-spirit of the Menominee Nation, and the lovely Avalisa Ellicott, model, public speaker, makeup fanatic, and outspoken transgender advocate. Together, we are Frankly Speaking.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are here to frankly speak with you. Bloop. However, we only frankly speak about things that apply to our lives.
I will frankly speak about things that don't apply to my lives from the lens of my eye, and I will say that it is as such.
I like that little twist from the lens of my eye. Oh, trust.
From these.
There are a lot of things that I could talk about. There are a lot of things that I just don't want to waste my energy on.
Seriously.
Right? I do not need to waste my energy on all those things. It's been a week. It's been a week. I will share more about where I'm coming from soon. Stay tuned. I'm still trying to process some of the things that I've experienced over this last week or longer, probably the last couple 2.5 months, maybe. Just some stuff that's going on, and it's been interesting.
Okay. Okay, I can get into that.
Yes, it's been interesting, but it's a lot of, let me just share it. I'll share this piece, right? This piece is that I am still frequently misgendered. We talk about that a lot. But ironically, when people want to challenge me and my leadership style or how I do things, then suddenly I'm a toxic man. And I'm displaying toxic masculinity, and I'm threatening and abusive and aggressive and bullying.
But also emotional and crazy and hysterical. You can't have it both ways, babe. Let it go.
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand the world. We are in the great upside down.
I think some people get joy simply from confusing others and making them question their own sanity.
Yeah, the whole gaslighting thing is for real.
I have this game that I play with my husband where we gaslight each other, and it's fun for a little bit.
Tell me how that goes. Tell me how that goes. I would like to see. I would like to hear how that goes.
So we have 2 sets of pillows on the bed. One that we actually sleep on with our heads, and another that we put in between our legs because it straightens out your spine while you sleep. I sleep on the left side of the bed. He sleeps on the right side of the bed. The dogs usually sleep somewhere in the middle. At some point, one of the dogs jumps off and goes to his bed, which is at the foot of the bed. And his bed is raised so that he can jump up onto our bed easier. And so at some point in the night, my husband takes his pillow and just kicks it wherever it goes. And then he snatches my pillow from me. And so it's usually at the foot of the bed, right in front of where Teddy jumps up so that he can get in bed in the morning. And so my husband will say, "Why do you always try and make sure that Teddy can't get in bed?" And it's like, "I don't. That's your pillow." It's just this fun game that we play where we make each other feel crazy for half of a second.
Yeah. I mean, as long as everybody who's part of the game knows that they're in the game. Right?
You have to understand the rules of the game to play the game. If you don't,
Yes.
that's when it gets crazy and abusive.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the thing. The whole gaslighting thing. It's the people who the other part of that, the other piece of that is people who project their own shit into the world, right?
Oh, jeez.
And so like they approach you and they don't even get that their upset is really more about themselves and less about you, and they're projecting onto you,
Case in point,
this
Karen's.
yes, this like angry, abusive, yada 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 stuff.
Yeah,
And
I watched one lady on the internet screaming loudly about how somebody was parked in her neighborhood and they didn't belong there, and how she was going to call the police, and she had never seen him before. And he was like, I've lived at this house for 2 years. This is my house. My car is parked in front of my house. And she's like, you don't live there. I've never seen you before. I'm calling the police. And it's like, sure, yeah, you may have been confused because your awareness was so far down that you did not notice that someone has been living across the street from you for 2 years. And you thought that maybe, somebody random was just in the neighborhood and you wanted to know their reasons so that you could protect your safety. However, you crazy bitch, you went about it the wrong way, and then threatening to bring in the police while it might make you feel safer is escalating a situation to an entirely different level. And
Yeah.
it's just like, it does not make sense to me. Like this
Yeah.
whole conversation that we are having. I watched John Oliver with my husband last night, and the whole conversation that we're having about critical race theory and like the way that people are talking about it, and they're like, you're teaching them to hate white people and hate them. And it's like, no, this is just about recognizing how racism has played a role up until present day and continues to. And if we don't do something about it, it is going to continue to harm our future. So instead of turning a blind eye to it and acting like slavery was a slumber party, let's actually look at it. Let's look at it face on and actually do something about it. But there was this woman who stormed into a school board meeting about critical race theory. Critical race theory is not an elementary school subject. It is a collegiate level subject. But she stormed in there, and then there was an interview done after the fact. And she was like, if we stopped looking at racism, then it wouldn't be a problem anymore. But we keep going after it, and we keep looking at it. And, if we just ignored it, it wouldn't be a problem anymore. And the person interviewing her said, don't you think that a young Black man, because at one point the woman said that she didn't see color, and the interviewer said, don't you think that a young Black man would like to live in a world where people don't see his color? And the woman then said, well, when their clothes are hanging off them and they're being disrespectful and they're getting in arguments with the police. And it was like, you racist bitch. That's where you went, okay, I see you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like, I feel like I'm like 2020, like I've always known that America was, not the best for everyone that's not white. But like 2020 really shined a light on it for everyone. And since then, I have felt like I was in the upside down. Donald Trump really made me feel I was in the upside down.
Yeah.
I was like, what? How is this QAnon?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah. And just, the double standards and but I also get frustrated because it's like there's this sense of, I don't disagree that there are too many white people who get away with things simply because they can afford to. And so that has me looking at, a judicial system that's stacked against Black, brown, and indigenous folks right off the bat, because there's not the access, right? And so it's frustrating to me, because when I know that there are folks who didn't have access, who now have a record, and really shouldn't have a record, because they could have, if they had access, gotten off, because we have case after case after case of white folks with the access to the power and privilege getting their own kids off. And we're talking about kids who have literally killed people. Like, I was watching a Dateline or a 2020 about this young man, like the whole family was full of these weird secrets of this, that, and the other. And it was like this wealthy family. I mean, it just was like one layer after another layer after another layer of lies and deceit and getting away literally with murder. And the guy finally, they finally caught the father. I mean, he killed his own wife and son and tried to say that it was somebody else that came in and did it. But as they started uncovering more and more and more of this story, come to find out, his son had killed someone in a motor vehicle accident when he was drunk.
Just went on living life.
Like never held accountable for that. So, I mean, there just is so much. There's so much to unpack, and I don't know. I've pulled myself off. I'm not on social media as much as I used to. I know I shared at one point that I had been in an intensive outpatient program for eating disorders. And so I'm, trying to treat myself better. And I just know that I can't expend that much energy anymore on, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. I will catch myself going and scrolling and looking and reading and whatever, but I don't interact nearly as much as I used to, because
that's where I am.
It's so volatile and toxic. Like, there's just so many things that are so I can't even keep up with half the shit that's going on, and I don't even care anymore. It's like I can't, for my own emotional well-being. Yes, I just cannot do it, and I don't want to do it. Like, I'm not looking to be TikTok famous, or I don't. You and I enjoy having conversations with you. And I appreciate the fact that you like to have them in public like I do. So we live stream our conversations, and we just happen to call it something. And you know what? If we get 2 viewers, great. If we get 12 viewers, awesome. If we get no viewers, we still sit here and talk to each other.
It's still a conversation. Honestly, this is like a sort of therapy for me, because I'm able to have discussions about things that just eat me up with someone who I know is going to be open enough to hear me. So many times in conversations with people, they'll look at you while they think about what they're saying. And you don't really feel heard. But this is a place where I'm able to have those conversations and get feedback and start an amazing dialogue about, the craziest things. And it feels so good. It's so therapeutic for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. Like today, we decided we were going to get on and have a conversation around dating and what it's like to date while trans. Now, I have been not dating for a while, because I have been in a relationship, and I am partnered and have been partnered for a while, and it is what it is. But I do know that I have experienced, prior to this relationship, interesting comments made by potential partners or people who have been interested in dating me. And so this is what sparked the conversation. Was another friend of ours who actually is just joined us here in backstage, waiting to be pulled in to say hello. But we were just talking about what the experience of dating while trans, and she had shared some things that had happened in her dating experience. And I was like, would you be willing to come on the show and talk about this? And she's like, oh my God, absolutely.
Yes, get it out there.
Yeah. So let's get it out there. So today we have joining us today is Ariel O'Donnell. Hi.
Hello. I chose food over face tonight, so
Oh.
I ate and I didn't have time to put on all my face. So this is what everyone gets tonight.
Well, your face appears to be on to me.
Well, I put on lips. If you draw everything to the lips,
Yeah.
Everything else fades away. I didn't put on the lips, so it's just kind of
would compliment.
Yeah.
your lips, my base. We got this. This is a full face.
Mhm.
It's a full face, all right. So Ariel, I mean, I'm sure that I can't even fathom some of the things that you've been told. I know that when I was talking with Avalisa about having you on the show, she's like, yeah, been there, done that. And so I'm actually going to sit here and might interject with some questions, but I'm actually going to let you and Avalisa lead this conversation, because I do think that trans women have a way different experience in dating than trans men. I do know that I've dated some folks who have said, like, where are you at with getting bottom surgery? Like, is that something you think you're going to do or that you're interested in? And that, and I always ask, well, why would you ask that question? And, well, I don't know how I would feel about that. Right. And I'm just like, well, I mean, I've gotten to the point now where for me, that's just not something that's in the cards. Like, I don't see that as something that I need. It's not part of what causes me dysphoria, if that makes sense. And like I said, I have a partner who's totally fine with what I got and all's good. And we get along well in that department as far as like intimacy is concerned, physical intimacy is concerned. And that's a whole nother show we can talk about another time. But I do know that trans women have some really unique challenges. So I'm going to sit back. I might throw in some questions, but I'm going to let you two share some of your experience as much as you want to. I mean, again,
I'll get deep into it.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
embarrass some people.
Okay, well, I'm gonna zip my lip. Go, take it away.
Okay.
Take it away,
So-
ladies.
This entire conversation stems from the fact that young men are not, well, at least young men our age have not been socialized to understand how to treat trans women, because there's no way to just see us as women and treat us as women. They have to be very specific with the way that they treat us. And because they have cis mothers who are women, and they have cis sisters who are women, and cis aunts who are women, and cis grandmothers who are women, they understand exactly how to treat women, or at least they see how their fathers treated women and emulate that, or they see it in the media, and that's how they decide how they treat cis women. However, when it comes to trans women, most men, their first, and when I say men, it's a collapse of cis men. Most men get their introduction to trans women through pornography.
Mhm.
And that is their understanding of trans women. They start to build their idea of how to treat us from there. And so, with that being said, when it comes to men who are interested in trans women, what we see is a lot of behavior that is modeled after behavior that has been in pornography. Now I'm going to get into me. I said it last episode. Now I will say it this episode as well. They reach out to you. They say, "Hey, how are you doing? You say, I'm doing wonderful. How are you? They say, I'm doing good. I'm having a great day. I'd love to get to know you as a person. And you say, oh, I'd love to get to know you as a person. And then you talk about your favorite colors and you see that you're compatible with this person. And you've had this amazing conversation. And then you say, I just want to let you know and be open up front that I am trans. And then the next message you get from them is, how big is it? Or will you fuck me? They're not sending that to everybody else because they understand that there's a specific level in which specific level of respect with which you need to treat women if you want to continue to have their attention. However, they see us as these come hungry, desperate whores, and they feel like they can say whatever they want to us because the most important thing at the end of the day is that we're getting the attention from men. And so they treat us like shit. And it's not only on online dating, it's an in-person dating. I have dated, luckily I'm married now and I'm off the market, so I don't have to deal with this, but I have dated so many men who sold me a fantasy. They told me that I would be their girlfriend. They told me we would go out in public. We would have this amazing open relationship. And the second I spread my legs, gone. And I experienced that over and over and over and over again. And that was one of the things where I was talking to one of my girlfriends and she was like, girl, if they're just using you for ass, make some money. She was like, you're over here getting your heart broke time after time after time after time. And what do you get from it? Absolutely nothing. But what are they getting? They're fulfilling a fantasy. You better charge for that fantasy. And I was like, I get it now. I get it. I am now understanding why women choose this. Not women who are doing survival sex work, but the trans women who actually choose it. Because getting your heart broken over and over again in this way is so disheartening, and it leads you to a place where you believe that in a relationship you aren't worth anything because of how other people are treating you. And we should all be able to base our own value off of ourselves and, let it be without anybody's input. But when you're experiencing that over and over again, it's really hard. That's why when my husband told me that he wanted to marry me and all these other things, I was like, what do I want an engagement ring to look like? What would I want a wedding to look like? Because I had taken it off the table so long ago. I got it out.
I think a lot of what you just said, it really resonates with me. One of the things that I want to talk about in my experience specifically is, and it happened recently, and I don't know if we're getting too frankly, but we're going to get frankly for a second.
We can be frank. You can be as frank as you want.
Well, okay, I'm going to start with something else. I'm a very hairy person. I have really long curly hair, but it's like I have curls everywhere and And there is this is one part of the conversation. There is this and I'm not saying that cis women don't experience this too. So if cis women are watching, they're like, oh my gosh, we have that too. Don't exclude us. That's not what I'm trying to do. But I... For the majority of times that I've experienced dating or intimacy or things like that, there is this expectation for me to spend 3 hours narrating my body, getting feminine enough, making sure my voice is really high pitched and past there's this whole thing I have to do. And this is something to share personally is I'm working on in therapy. It's fun, but I don't like to physically be touched. Especially my genitalia, that is a no-go for me. That is not comfortable for me. And that's a whole other conversation. Men love to be yeah, as you mentioned earlier, can I touch it? Can I see it? And I'm just whatever. Not whatever. I'm okay, you. But no, not shaming them. If that's your thing, that's your thing. But that's really uncomfortable
it's
for me.
The
and
way
it's
that
also
that it makes you feel.
Exactly. And but to go back to so it's there's this whole ritual of getting ready, and I cannot tell you how many times, and this is gonna make me sound kind of pathetic for a second, that guys will ask to meet me and then ghost it. And it's like I spent like 3, and then they'll message me like a week later or a couple days later and be like, sorry, I did it myself.
It has grown back. It is double. I'm not doing this again. You wasted my time.
And like, it's just like, you are a toy for the moment. You're not a human being. You're a toy for the moment. And the hardest part that I've experienced is I have had some like really, and there's a part about this. If you haven't seen Pose, you need to watch Pose, because in my experience, how the Angel storyline goes, there's a man in the first season, there's a man, not to give too much away, but like there's a man who's married and he like comes to her, and in my own experience, I have had so many men talk to me. I was talking to a man for 4 years, like on and off. And just about a month or 2 ago, I found out he's had a girlfriend the entire time. There are so many times men will come and ask and be like, is it okay that I'm married? Or I have a girlfriend. I had a guy ask if that turned me on once. He was like, does that turn you on? And he goes, she's cis. And I was like, ew. Not like you because she's cis, but like you because
you creep.
Yeah, well, he's like it's like this like thing. It's like, yeah, whatever. But the hardest part for me is like just recently, the last person, and we're still talking, but I feel the pattern starting a little bit. But like, I met up with a man who just moved to Omaha, and we were talking, and I went over to his place, and we, you know, like had nice conversations and all this stuff. And to go back to what Avalisa was saying earlier, like we talked about family, we talked about God, we talked about like our fears. Men, there's like, and I'm not saying that men don't do this with cis women, but in my experience, they have this ability to see me as both one of the bros and also as a woman. And so it's like, they tell me their fears, or they tell me like deep things about themselves, and there's like this emotional connection. And then there's a barrier because they'll be like, yeah, let's have a 20-minute conversation about God and philosophy, but I can't take you out.
Yeah.
I can have this deep conversation. We can be intimate. Here. Exactly. We can be intimate in private. I can tell you that I struggle with this or I struggle with that, but you're still a shameful thing that's kept in the dark. But it's not authentic. And I'm not trying to like one up cis women, but I would say it feels almost like they're being more authentic with me at times than they could be with other people. But then there's still that barrier of like, I need to be with a woman with a vagina, but I can have all these deep conversations with you. I don't know how to explain it. You know what I'm saying?
I got you. I dated a man, early 20s, and we had the most amazing conversations. We had the most amazing sex. It was just a good thing. And like, he talked to me about going to China and all of this other stuff. And he was like, you're the type of person I see myself married to. And I was like, then let's go out on a date. And he was like, I feel like you're my soulmate, but I just don't know if I'm ready for that. And I was like, well, if I'm your soulmate, if you've been this open with me, if you shared your soul to me and you feel like it connects with mine, why would you not take me out in public? Oh, because, you know, I have family, and what are they going to say? And what if somebody harasses you? And I just don't know if I'm ready to be strong for you in that moment. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, what is wrong with you? And it happens over and over and over again. It feels like there's a handbook, like there's a chaser handbook where they just pass it out. Like you click one Gmail porn link and there's the chaser handbook. And it's like, make yourself emotionally available. Say the things that they want to hear. After you have sex with them, make sure you treat them as cheaply as possible. Make sure you make them question everything about themselves, and then go on to the next one because you've already had it. Go find a new one.
No, and there's what you just like, the pornography part is so important, I think, because what also happens, and there's nothing wrong with this, but it's like I'm 24, I don't have a lot of money yet. Like I'm still working on transitioning, like I'm not where I want to be. We could talk about this later, but like I'd like to have bottom surgery one day, and that's caused some issues. But like all that's happened for me has been estrogen for the most part. And so it's like these men also have this like idea in their head that I'm gonna be this like big tits, like hyper feminine person with a penis, and then I speak and they're like the fantasy's crushed, and then I'm treated like shit because my voice isn't high enough, or like or and I'm not sure if this has happened with Avalisa, but it's like I spend the whole time not enjoying any experience of it because I'm like, is my voice too deep? Did I miss any hair? Did I like what like
I was there for a little bit, and then I was like, fuck it. If I get mine, I get mine. If I don't, I don't. Because like it just wears you down so much. But I remember the early days where I was like, okay. Yeah.
Well, I just embrace it when I can. I'm just like, that's what I got. Like,
yeah, I've been so self-conscious in the past, and that's why it worked with my husband. I was tired as fuck when I made it to that date, and I was over it, and I couldn't pretend to be the best version of me. And like I sat down and I was like, get me a whiskey neat. So this is me. This is what you're getting. And like not having to put on all of those airs because they do expect it. And here's the gross thing. They either expect you to look like me, or they expect you to be a construction worker with a Party City wig and like a cheap dress from Ross. No, that's it.
I think that's another thing is like, and this is not sex shaming anyone, but there's also this conflation with like, I'm the best word to describe how I see myself is I see myself as a trans feminine person. I spend as much time as I can in makeup. I wear feminine clothing. I don't always wear makeup. Like my nails are usually painted, all this stuff, like feminine markers are there. My issue is the construct of womanhood. There's something I struggle with still there. However, there's this conflation between like, and these are terms that most people might not know, but, and I might butcher them, but my understanding is, so there's something called cross-dressing, and that to my understanding, and if I'm saying this wrong, please tell me, is someone who identifies as cis, who dresses in the opposite or in a different spectrumed gender expression, or a mix of the two or whatever, which is fine. There's something called like sissies. And like, I'm not sure what that is, to be honest, like what that expression is. I'm not like nuanced enough to like explain that. But what I'm trying to say is like, and then there's trans women and trans femmes. And I have met men who'll be like, when they turn into those, like, they're like having this nice fantasy. And then you say, just so you know, I'm trans, or just like, they're having this nice like talk with you. And then suddenly they're like intimate, which is fine. And like, that takes a turn sometimes. And they'll be like, you're my little like femboy in a wig, or you're my little, you know what I mean? It's like, yes. there's like this like turn of events of like, there's this conflation between like cross-dress, like people, you have to like teach people, but they also don't care. Like I've had so many men call me a tranny and think it's a compliment. They're like, I love trannies. I'm like, oh, thank you. like no, like, you know.
And they do it in the grossest way possible. Oh, you know, I like trannies, right? Mm-hmm. So what are you gonna do? So okay, I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna take this real far, so that we can come back from it and maybe go a little further than we were. I am not going to put my own sexual enjoyment ahead of anyone else's. I'm not going to say that anyone is any less because they are not in the same boat. However, I am not a top. I have never been a top. I don't want to be a top. I don't want that shit there in the first fucking place. So when I decide to be decided, when I decided to be intimate with a man and he takes it full left field and he's like on all fours, ass cheeks spread open, and he's like, come and fuck me. And it's like, excuse me? Oh, let me come on your face. Excuse me?
Listen, okay, wait a minute.
Let me slap you. And it's just like, what the fuck is happening? And it all goes back to like what they have seen in porn. But my experiences sexually being trans have been so fucking disgusting. And this leads into something that Ariel was talking about. As a pre-op trans person, you have pre-op, you have post-op, and you have non-op. Cool. As a pre-op person who wants bottom surgery, I had to realize very early that affected my options when dating was concerned. Because some people will accept your transness if you've had everything done. Are you full trans? Did you do all the surgeries? Did you do all of the things? Some people will only accept you that way. And then there's other people who will only accept you if you still have your penis. And not just still have your penis, it has to be fully functioning. You got to be shooting buckets, mama, for them to even be interested. And it's so disgusting. It is so disgusting to, instead of having a conversation about sexual compatibility and having these conversations and learning what the other person enjoys, they jump straight out of the gate. I have had somebody say, oh, sorry, I love our conversations. I think you're absolutely beautiful, but I cannot be with you unless you have a vagina. I have had people that I was in a relationship with break up with me because I had plans on getting a vagina. Oh, I don't ever want you to get rid of that. That's why I'm sexually attracted to you. So if you were to get a vagina, then we would have no more sexual attraction. And I was like, get the fuck out of here.
No, that's okay. This is not oversharing, but this is like a little bit of a raw thing, and it's gonna like open up probably people. And I understand that it's like, Ariel, have better self-worth. But I met a man, this is another example. I met a man, to go off of what Avalisa was saying, last year in June. And I usually tell people right away that I'm trans, or it's in my bio on dating apps. It's in my bio, which, by the way, men don't read. And so they'll message me and I'll be like, did you read my bio? And they're like, 1 second. Oh, and then I'm blocked. And I'm like, okay, great.
It's either, oh, and you're blocked, or, oh, how big is it?
Exactly.
Oh, are you going to fuck me? It's just like crazy. It was the first thing in the bio. In all caps.
No, 100%.
How do you know I have a dog, but you don't know that I'm trans?
And I talked to this man. We were going to go on a date. He was Jewish. He was really attractive. Like, I was really excited because I'm Jewish, and like all these, like, it was like, oh, this is great. His name was like a name I love. Like, it was like exciting, and we were having good conversations. And I was like, did you read my bio? And he read it, and he was like, oh shit, we can still just be friends though. And he's not the only one who's done this. The reason I was like, Ariel, have better self-worth, is I still talk to him like every other day. He messages me all the time. But I made a post at some point about like how I was so happy on estrogen because I have like A cups now. And this man who told me we should just be friends, who had intimate conversations with me at one point, asked to see my tits. Yeah. And I remember just thinking to myself, like,
wow.
You know, it's just like he responded to that post.
So gross.
And I was just like, yeah. I was like, I hate men. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, but it's just like, you know, like, it's just like, it's just interesting. It's just, men are just very interesting. And I think I think there's also and trigger warning, because I just went somewhere in my head that's not like a great place, and if we don't want to talk about this aspect, that's okay. Trigger sexual harm, but it's like I also know a lot of trans women and myself included, where because of this, like we're laughing right now about how annoying this is, but how dangerous it is to see an entire type of person as nothing but an object.
Yeah.
Last year, I went on a date with a man, and he was like twice my age. He has kids my age, and he ended up harming me.
Mm.
And it's just like how men see trans women specifically as just like complete. And I know a lot of cis women, so I'm going to ask any cis women listening to this to like sit with me for just a second. I know women in general and feminine people in general are seen as objects. I know that. I also know that there is a difference in experience between a cis woman and a trans woman object-wise, because I've seen it and I've experienced it, and I've talked to other trans or other cis women, and they're like, and Avalisa's mentioned it, and it's like there is this moment where, and I'm gonna make this broader, and I apologize for going on this rant. I would say that
No, I have words for you.
Okay. I would say marginalized women. So I'm going to ask some people to sit with me really hard right now. I'm going to say marginalized women. So women who are not white and nor cis experience a type of sexual objectification that is radically different than cis white women. It just is. And I know I was raised a man, and like you can go there in your mind and you can like see that. I know that's not my experience, but like what I'm trying to say is like sit with me in this moment and just understand that like you're not a human.
Yes.
You are not a human being.
That's the word. So when it comes to trans people, when we're talking to people and when we're trying to educate them, we always have to stress our humanity, because people get so caught up in the understanding and the fact that they don't understand that they forget that we're actually people. How many times have you heard me say it, Eli? We're people. We're just people. And so when it comes to the sexual objectification of a person, when you're already struggling to see their humanity because there's something outside of what you normally see every single day, then that objectification goes out of it. Like the way, and I hate to, stress the porn industry so hard, but like realty, frankly, she-male porn set us back. It set us back far. And I'm not saying trans women, she-male porn under the category she-male, that shit set us back, because these women existed basically like blow-up dolls with all of the parts. And they were treated as blow-up dolls with all of the parts. And so we are being treated, we humans that are living lives and not here specifically for your sexual gratification, are being treated as objects. I think the objectivity of trans women is much higher than that of any other cis woman. I will say that cis women have experienced sexual objectivity longer, because girlhood, and it's gross. It's fucking gross. However, but the second we transition, like it feels like you're being stripped of your humanity when you transition, and you spend all of this time fighting to get it back. And when you're trying to be intimate with someone and get to know someone and feel love and attention, to not have on the armor and the clothing that you need to exist and to keep your mental health at a very safe level, It's just bad. And one thing that I was thinking of, and I had to shut my mind off and type it so that I would come back to it. One thing that I was thinking of is that we need to start addressing the sexual trauma that we all experience. I think we only categorize violent sexual trauma as sexual trauma.
Yeah.
But I know that I have been in many situations where I did not want it to happen, and I expressed that I did not want it to happen, but I let it happen so that I could be safe. And I know that I keep that in a different box other than the violent sexual trauma that I have experienced. And I think it all goes in the same box. And I know for myself and many other trans women that I have talked to, a lot of their sexual encounters have made them wildly uncomfortable. And if they felt safe enough to walk away from it, they would have, but they didn't. Sorry.
No.
Hard left turn.
Yeah, that actually, that it all ties together though. I mean, I think that what Ariel was touching on earlier in regard to like multi-marginalized folks and the difference, it's like when I think about cis indigenous women, right? There's a parallel there with Black trans women and the high rates of being murdered. And so it's like, well, if we can start to see these themes, these common themes, these strands that bring this together, and we start to realize that all of this is so interconnected. But I don't disagree. I mean, there's a certain amount of rationalization that goes with, and I think it's within individual minds as well, just like what you just illustrated, Avalisa. It's like, okay, like I know I've had these violent things happen to me. Then I've had these things where I said no, but then I went ahead and let it happen because I literally wanted to get out of the situation alive, right? But they're actually the same thing. And if we dial back some of this education, I mean, this is why people are pushing so hard for comprehensive sex education in schools, because there is a direct correlation between what we're teaching our kids and what we're not teaching our kids. How we raise our boys, how we socialize boys compared to how we socialize girls. We are setting girls up for failure.
Yeah.
Cis girls and also effeminate boys who probably identify as cis or as trans, right? But don't have the language yet. The ways in which we socialize people we are setting people up for failure. Ariel has her hand raised.
Well, and I'm really glad that you said what you said, because I was just about to mention that in the next time I was able to speak, because I made a post once about like a situation, and this happens all the time, where, and I'm not saying cis white women and cis women in general don't get catcalled, but there's like a compounded thing where I'm catcalled, and I'm hyper aware that if they realize I'm trans, I'm an even more. And yeah. And so I had been catcalled 3 times in a row on the way home one day in Omaha. And I made this post, and this person who ended up just being a troll in my life, and then they unfriended me, and I was like, okay. But they were like, just because it's new for you to be sexually objectified doesn't mean, and I don't remember what else they said, but I remember they said that it's new for me. And I had this moment where I was just like, I am in therapy for a lot of reasons, but like, and you brought up effeminate boys. I was conditioned and raised as a man or as a boy. However, I wasn't one, and I'll explain in a second. Like, for a lot of reasons, I wasn't one. And there was a preying on that as a child in a lot of different ways, in different places, in different spaces. And there were inappropriate things that happened to me, inappropriate conversations that would happen to me. And I think one of the biggest ones, and I'm not trying to like spiral our conversation out of this thing, but was especially from priests growing up because of how I behaved and how I sounded and my experience in the Catholic Church growing up. I was raised Catholic. I converted to Judaism, but there's this assumption that young boys in general, but especially young effeminate boys, aren't preyed on in some way or harmed in some way, or and not even just sexually, but like, for example, my earliest form of protest was in Catholic grade school. The boys had to sit with boys and the girls had to sit with girls. And guess where this bitch sat every day until she was told to move? I sat with my 3 girlfriends. And like, that was my earliest form of protest. And there's this like assumption that young trans people, regardless of where they sit in transness, didn't experience some form of harm directly attacked into their gender expression or their their selfness.
Yeah.
And I think it's a conversation that silences a lot of people. And I'm trying to remember where I was going with this, and I apologize that I went off on this tangent.
Well, no apologies necessary. Okay. I think it's important to understand, like I tell people all the time, I am without doubt positive that had I been born assigned male, I would have been an effeminate one. Not because I would have eventually considered myself a gay man. I'm a queer person, right? And I just know that for myself, the existence of these energies of masculinity, femininity, all those things, they exist within me equally. And I believe that who I am right now today is who I would have been, and I would have been harmed way more than I was had I been born assigned male and been effeminate.
No, that's
I think people with both energies, you would have been an effeminate boy or you would have been a tomboy. Like,
no,
because that's just the energy that you have, both and.
Yeah. I think the point that I was trying to illustrate, though, is that I do believe, and this is why, and so many people don't even understand this, statistically speaking, right? Young boys are being sexually assaulted and harmed is in almost in equal numbers to young girls, especially the more vulnerable ones, like the ones who are effeminate. That's the point that I think you were trying to make and what you were trying to share, and I'm relating that to, the statistics will say that pedophiles prey on weak kids, period. Regardless of gender, they're preying on weak kids.
I think that the amount of trauma that I received as an effeminate boy definitely shaped a lot of the fear that I have in my life, because there's this understanding from a hyper toxic masculine society, specifically the Black community. They're horrible. We're horrible. But femininity is just something that they try to beat out of everyone. And there's this thing where they abuse you and they mistreat you in order to show you that your femininity is wrong. They will beat the girl out of you. They will put you in situations that no little boy should ever have to be in, to prove to you that it's better, or to prove that what you think that you might want is something that you shouldn't want. I don't want to dismiss the trauma that young boys go through, young children, period. But I think young effeminate boys get it a lot worse.
Absolutely.
But then there's also this side of the spectrum where young masculine boys are experiencing trauma and not categorizing it as trauma. I was talking to someone on a chat room. I have started going into a chat room for the solitaire game that I play, and I just talk with random people. He was talking about how when he was 15, he had a 33-year-old girlfriend and they had sex.
Wow.
And I was like, she was a predator. And he was like, no, I pursued her. And I was like, at 33, would you want to date a 15-year-old? And he was like, no, that's gross. And I was like, then don't fall into the double standard.
Yeah.
Because this is disgusting. There was the rapper who got found out because he hired a prostitute, an escort for his child who was like 11. Because it's sexuality and the double standard around it is so disgusting, because boys are encouraged to go sow their seed, to spread their seed, while girls are treated as social pariahs if they do the same.
Right.
With girls, you have to protect them. With men, you have to put them out there. And
it's just boys being boys. I mean, come on. Yeah.
I want to kick boys being boys in the face.
Oh yeah.
But experiencing that trauma, and I think the physical aspects of that trauma, to take it back to where Ariel was, makes it so scary being catcalled and flirted with when you are trans.
Mm-hmm.
I know that for the longest time, I only paid at the pump and refused to get anything inside of a gas station.
I have a story. Keep going though. Oh, you just reminded me of a story.
Gas stations are the worst.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, even if I was cis, this attention that I would be getting would be disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you find out I'm trans, where is that going to go? Where is that going to go? Is my life going to be in danger when you're being catcalled down the street, when some man aggressively comes up to you and starts flirting with you? Where is that going to go if you find out that I'm trans? And that fear, the aspect of fear in being objectified sexually, is something that we all experience. But I think trans fear and the possibility of what could happen is so much scarier.
So
Yeah.
I think to tie into what you just said and what we said a second ago, not to I think one of the things that I'm grateful about this conversation, the frankly speakingness of it, is there's also this there isn't a space to talk about being like a trans person who experienced harm without it being like I've had in therapy, one of the things I've had to work on is what is my trauma and what is my transness? And a lot of people will attack, they'll be like, oh, you're a trans woman. Were you molested? And, or you know what I mean? Or
oh, I got that. Yes.
Yeah.
And
it's
it's the same twisted thought around my being born assigned female and being attracted to females. And people consistently asked me, did you have a bad relationship with your dad? Were you assaulted as a child? And I'm just like, why do we go to that as the explanation for my being the way that I am? It's like, no, I am this way because I am this way. And my sexual orientation and my gender identity are two separate things, y'all.
No. And that's the other thing is these people who ask this question, especially family members and other people, for the most part, not everyone, because there are people who see you, but they were there. I was called a little girl by all the bullies. And for example, when I mentioned inappropriate conversations, when I had just turned 14 and you're learning what your body is and things like that, I had gone to confession and you're supposed to confess your sins. And I remember I was face to face, and I never did it again, but I was face to face with this priest, and I mentioned that I had looked at pornography, and he was like, what kind? and he like it was like this like conversation suddenly became about my gayness at the time, and it's like you can't, like, all these people growing up, all these adults knew that you were feminine, knew that you were womany, not womany, that's not a good word, but like, you know what, like they knew you were feminine, and now when you come out as like a trans woman, or you're like, you embrace your femininity, it's like, where'd this come from? What happened to you? Who touched you wrong? It's like, bitch, you knew it was there this whole time.
You've seen it. You watched me get bullied for having a switch. Everybody
It's
bullied
like,
me for having a high voice and a switch in my walk.
Uh-huh.
Why are you surprised now?
I was pigeon-toed. I walked inward, like I was feminine. I was in heels before I was in heels. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's just like, it's like, or the last, did I do something wrong? I totally got us off track. I'm sorry, but like, it's just, I don't know. It's just interesting. It's just a very interesting thing. And then that same ignorance, to tie it all back to everything, that same ignorance shows up in relationships and in dating, where it's like,
Yeah.
they know that I'm feminine. So it's not to like intellectually shame people, but like, I would guess an aware person would be like, this person identifies as a woman. We are conditioned that penises are men, which isn't true, but we're conditioned that way. Maybe my first question to this person shouldn't be, can I suck your dick? Can I touch your dick? Like, maybe that's like a touchy subject for that person. You know what I mean? Like, maybe that's a disrespectful question. Like if we, and so it's just all very, I'm getting heated. Like, it's just like,
The question for me is, the question before, because I reached out and I asked, but the question for me was, are cis women getting the exact same treatment? And like, a lot of them, you know the guys that are just sexual straight out the gate. You understand that. However, like, they're not getting the flip. They're not getting the hard snap moment that happens the second that they find out that you're trans. Why? People really need to get it together. Lots of people need to die off and stop telling people that the world is this way.
Yes.
yeah.
Indeed. All right. Well, look, we have reached the end of our hour.
Oh, wow. It's only an hour? Oh, I thought we had like 5 hours to talk.
Well, Lord knows we could fill it with some of these stories. I mean, it just is, it's unfortunate because there is definitely so much more knowledge and awareness and education that needs to happen to have people understand. And I think that all of these things are so intertwined, right? These conversations are more intertwined than most people even want to believe that they are. And there is something about the trans, being in relationship with trans people is somehow has to be secretive, right? For most people. And it's rare to find someone who says, no, I want to have a relationship with you in the light. I want to have a relationship with you out in the world. And that is really difficult to manage because we are beings who want connection and love, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want to be seen and heard and valued. We want to be, able to walk down the street and feel safe and comfortable. And not that we have to be concerned if we're holding our partner's hand for our safety and for theirs. And again, the more marginalizations you add on top of that, the more dangerous it becomes, or who are we having to play our gender for? Are we expressing our gender in ways that we truly feel comfortable with? Are we doing it because we have to do it so that we can be safe out in the world and be seen and affirmed? And it's really difficult to stomach and think about all of those things. And most cis people will not think of it ever in a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And that's why we have these conversations. That's why we are frankly speaking.
Indeed. What you just said to leave people with from my end, and not to take appropriate this, it just really helped conceptualize things for me, as Toni Morrison talks about the white gaze a lot when it comes to like her Black experience, the white gaze, like performing things for white people, or like I think people can conceptualize what that means, the white gaze, and it's been like really helpful to me to like understand like the male gaze, the cis male gaze, like that I don't live to please the cis male gaze. I don't live to coddle and comfort, specifically in my experience of like ickiness, like hypermasculine cis men. And like I don't have to perform anything for that gaze, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, that does make sense. Avalisa, any final thoughts?
Yes, final thoughts.
You just want to throw a chair?
People are gross.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem that we have when it comes to relationships and dating is the secretive nature of it all. And I think that it goes back to the entire porn thing, because you don't tell everybody what type of porn you're watching. You don't want anybody to see you watching porn. And because this is the
like
I do. I'd love for everybody to watch it with me.
Lisa wants to have a porn watching party.
Hey, I could make some money. But the secretive nature of it comes from that shame, the shame around watching porn, the shame around sexuality, the shame around pleasure and happiness. And I think that, it should not be on us to change the way that the world works. And it's just really gross. So if you are a trans woman navigating through the dating world, like, it happens. It might happen for you. It might not happen for you, but always remember your self-worth. Always remember your value, and always know that no one else's thoughts, ideas, anything that they say, it has absolutely nothing to do with your value. Your value comes from within yourself, and make sure you always keep that high. If you want to do some reckless shit because you want to do some reckless shit, go do your reckless shit, but don't do it just so that you can feel like you have somebody. Because I did that for far too long, and it fucked me up.
I need to work on that.
I mean, you gotta spread your legs quite a few times before you get it on your own. So it always takes a good Judy to be like, "Hey, get it together," to snatch you out of it.
All right, y'all.
Thank you both.
Well, thank you for your honesty and your candidness around this conversation and this topic. I know sometimes it's not easy to talk about, but it is necessary, and I hope that you were able to feel that we do love you and see you and care about you and appreciate who you are and the contribution that you are to the world. So thank you, Ariel, for being here.
Both of you.
And that's it, y'all. That's another episode of Frankly Speaking. We are going to end this conversation. Thank you so much for joining and tuning in. Go and do your thing. Good night.